next reader is Terry Galvan. Yay!
Thanks, guys. This is an excerpt. He found her in the morgue. He liked morgues. He was very good at finding them and very good at breaking into them. He'd always had a knack for picking locks, and the modern digital ones with their base 10 numerical system and simplistic binary code were no exception. The cleanliness and organization of these temporary tombs made him very happy. The little tags fluttering on still toes, the cleanly wrapped incisions, the sweet perfume of formaldehyde, the sterilized tools arranged neatly in cupboards, and the extensive documentation of anything and everything measurable collapsed into tiny computer files. It felt like this space was especially prepared for him, like the workshops of a master artist in the days of old. But of course, those days were long gone, and he was nothing more than a refugee, relying only on his instincts as he searched for a new people in a new home. That's why he went into morgues, to try to understand people. Not one for words or for language, he learned by studying bodies in death's repose. Life, he knew, only became meaningful in death, and the only process more compelling than the creation of life was the unraveling of life, which he read like poetry in the synapses and sinews still bound together in protest against their inevitable dissolution. He rolled out the corpses one at a time, pressed his hands around their muscles, traced the hardy bones in the craniums, caressed the contorted feet and delicate spinal cords. Once the electrical pulses that drove muscle to action had simmered into silence, entropy tugged at the core of each cell and molecule. The way they clung together against the forces of nature told him everything about these people and how they lived. He hoped, by understanding what wrote itself into the body's weaving, that he could make a place for himself in this world, a place of his own making, where he did only his own bidding and was bound to no sinful power. This morgue was in a city, which made it all the more intriguing. The dead were at once more relaxed and more disturbed. The survival that they fought for was distinct. Few were touched by sun, weather, or infection, but rather by insidious human contraptions. Chemicals, lots of chemicals, the invisible diseases of loss, betrayal, grief, and most disturbingly, weapons. Knives, lead, explosives, weapons that his old masters would use on demons, these humans would use on each other. These dead had seen far too many times unnatural violence, curled up in their limbs and bones, flashing between their eyelids, lurking in the shadows between collapsing synapses, hugging the nervous system from whence they came. This, he mused, must be the price that they paid for protection from the elements. When he rolled out the body of a younger woman, he was confused. She seemed very much alive, except she wasn't. Her flesh seemed nearly warm, her muscles ready to bolt, her brain resisting disintegration. And yet, there was no oxygen in her blood, there was no soul trapped in her cranium. He held her hands and read the bones within them. She was a healer of women and infants. She had helped these women to master their power to give life, to have healthy children. She guided them when they could not, and even took the children that could not be had from their wombs. This healer held power over life at its most vulnerable place. But how could she be so powerful and yet her body lifeless in his arms? He moved through her nerve endings looking for her story. Her neck, badly bruised. Her heart crumpled. On her retinas lurked the faces of violent men. Her facial muscles still held the traces of not just memory, but the will of a soul. She wasn't completely dead, he realized. Moral quandary seized him. When he escaped, he had sworn to give up his craft, but here he was called to administer it, to right this wrong in the universe. He shouldn't. It would be very dangerous. But wasn't that why he had escaped? With no further thought, he wrangled makeshift oil lamps out of porcelain crucibles and ethanol, and scribbled on cotton sheets and reams of clean paper the ritual runes, and set about coaxing the healer's soul back into her body. Thank you.